Today we're going to talk about the recovering cryptocurrency market because if you look at just Bitcoin here, we reached a bottom at $6,000 and since then have recovered over 50% and are starting to test that psychological barrier at $10,000. And one of the important things I want to note about this particular recovery is that in the past when we started seeing, dips, corrections, crashes, whatever you want to call them, like, for example, if we go back to December 22nd here, this was a fairly substantial crash, I would call it. We came all the way down to $10,500 before price started to recover. But the important thing to note here is that we recovered in the course of 48 hours from $10,400 all the way up to $16,000. That all happened in the course of 48 hours. It was a very hectic 48 hours, I will say. I mean, that was insane. But what I want to note about this is that this was something that really didn't build any support under the market and also made people not all that excited when Bitcoin reached new $1,000 thresholds. It was not really seen as that special anymore, especially after this bull run that we saw. So this was a situation in which nobody really got to see what it's like to really invest in a bear market or see what really happens in a bear market where price just continues to go down day after day after day and people start losing faith, and the people that have been saying from the beginning that it's a bubble and that you should get your money out as quickly as possible, they start getting a lot louder and all of a sudden you start doubting yourself. Nobody experienced that with these crashes back here because Bitcoin immediately recovered. We saw that happen again here where Bitcoin dipped all the way down to roughly 12,500, 12,750 or so before coming all the way back up to 17,000. And now we finally have seen this prolonged crash for Bitcoin where it came from 17,000 all the way down to 6,000. This was a much needed correction in the price of Bitcoin, or whatever you want to call it. Again, really more of a crash. This was needed though. This was something to make people doubt this particular market, something to make people have questions about their investment decisions, things that made people doubt whether or not they should be fully invested into cryptocurrencies, which, newsflash, you shouldn't be. But this was something that was important that you really didn't get with crashes like this one when it recovered 60% in a day. And we're starting to finally get back to the point where people are getting excited again for every $1,000 threshold, which means that you're starting to see more reporting on it, you're starting to see more FOMO again, and I think we're starting to see the beginning of the second wave of this particular bubble. I do think that it's still a bubble at this point, and I think what we're going to see is prices are going to come back up above 10,000. How high it's going to go, I'm not sure. Obviously, nobody knows. But I do think that a lot of people missed out on this particular rise in Bitcoin, and they don't want to miss out again. So they're going to buy into this thinking that they're getting into the opportunity of their lifetime. If Bitcoin comes back up above 10,000 convincingly, and when I say convincingly, I mean with a lot of volume, we're probably going to see a situation in which people say, we will never see Bitcoin come down below 10,000 again. Just wait until you start seeing that narrative, because when that narrative starts to strike and it gets a lot louder, that's how you know things are starting to move along, and we really are into the second wave here. And I think this is going to be a fairly substantial buying into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. I still haven't lost faith that the dominance figure for Bitcoin is going to come back up. We're still only at 35% at this stage. And I just wanted to note here that there is a psychologically different element going on with sentiment here now that we've actually gone through a sustained correction or crash for Bitcoin that is starting to affect how people see it. But now that we're starting to see it come back up, people are starting to think, oh, this is the best opportunity we've had in a long time. Maybe I should buy in so I can start capturing this type of movement again. So that's something that's worth noting here. It seems like a lot of what was causing fear in the market before is also starting to go away. We have this situation with South Korea where people were fearing a ban, and now that fear has gone away, that they're really trying to say that they just want to make this currency trading or cryptocurrency trading more transparent, which is what they've been saying for a long time now. They don't want you to be anonymous. They don't want you to be doing money laundering. They don't want you to be using it for illicit activities, or, in the case of ICOs, they don't want you to be doing, scams, or they don't want you to be doing something that should be regulated, but you're, kind of like that gray ethical line where, a lot of ICOs are sitting in that area where they really should be disclosing more than they are. So anyway, they would just want to prevent situations like that. And we are seeing a little bit more of the fear associated with South Korea, the fear associated with China, and the fear associated with India all die down. So that's an important narrative that's starting to help the markets. You can see that we're in the green across the board here. There are obviously some exceptions here, probably most notably the situation that's going on with Nano. Nano was obviously fairly substantially hit by the situation with BitGrail, where a significant amount of the supply, I believe it was around 14%, was stolen from the exchange. This was one of the only exchanges that Nano traded on before they finally got added onto Binance. So this has been a situation that's been plaguing Nano for quite some time now. There's this kind of war going on between the developers of Nano as well as the guy in charge of the BitGrail exchange. In general, a lot of fear going on with that particular cryptocurrency, especially if the hackers decide to offload that supply onto the market, because as you guys know, these market caps are not accurate because float is often much lower than what we see with circulating supply. So what might actually end up happening here, and this is what's probably causing the downward pressure on price, is we might see a situation in which the hacker ends up selling into the market and the price goes down. Although it's worth noting, price has already come down fairly substantially already. So if you want to take that risk, it could be something that's worth looking into. Personally, it's not something I'm going to be taking a risk on, but I did want to point that out. It is one of the, either it's the biggest opportunity or trap in the market right now. It's kind of one of those deals. So I just wanted to point that out. But really the big story here, we have a couple of things going on with some of the major cryptocurrencies. With Ethereum, we're seeing it start to correct a little bit against Bitcoin. Not that substantially, but we finally, if I can pull this up here real quickly on TradingView, you can see that it's finally come down below that, 0.1 Bitcoin level, and we're starting to come down even further. I don't know where it's going to go from here. Personally, I still think Ether has had an insane bull run against Bitcoin that probably I don't see it extending too much further than it already has, because if it were to extend any further, it would just become the flippening all over again. And I don't think at this stage Ether is ready. I don't think the market is ready for Ethereum and the flippening. I just don't see that happening, so I think there's limited upside at this point. I do hold some Ether just in case that sort of situation occurs, but one of the big discussions that's going on with Ethereum at the moment is over EIP 867, which is talking about the recovery of hacked funds. This is something that we've seen often occur because of bugs or because of security flaws in a number of these different smart contracts. And probably one that's most notable and really responsible for this in a lot of ways is what happened with Parity. So in general here, we are seeing a situation where we have this huge debate going on, which is sort of like the DAO 2.0, which is, should we allow for these funds to be recovered or not? And there is a lot of discussion going on as to what should the place of developers be within the Ethereum ecosystem. What is the true philosophy of Ethereum? How far should you go with that authority? And really just questions about governance itself, as well as the legality of some of the decision making regarding, moving these funds around and recovering them from hackers. So there's a lot going on here that really has been going on as sort of like the equivalent of the scaling debate in Bitcoin. And I think this discussion over governance is something that is benefiting some of the competitors to Ethereum, such as Cardano and EOS. So that's another thing that's worth noting moving forward. Again, I still hold Ether. I still like Ether, but it is something that I think at this point is fairly priced. I don't think it's undervalued, and so I'm not going to be buying any more. Ripple had a little bit of an announcement here where they were announcing that there is a pilot going on with Western Union, which is obviously something that is very important. I think that this is a better approach for Ripple to go than the banking route. I think that they really should be dealing more with individual businesses than they should be dealing with banks. And the reason I mention this is because I think banks are very likely to want to cut Ripple out. I think there's more going on here than just cost efficiency when it comes to banks. There's desire over having complete control that I don't think they feel they will have with Ripple. Again, something that might be worth exploring a little bit more in a future video. But really here, I don't think that Ripple wants to be best friends with the banks. I don't think that should be the direction that its business takes. Now, that is the direction they're going right now, and I get why they're going that route because there's so much money to be made in that particular route, and there's going to be a number of banks that jump on board. But I just look at the way banks have operated in the past, and I don't think it's all going to be about operational efficiency. I think there's going to be a number of other factors that play in here that is going to lead to a situation in which the banks want to create their own equivalent of the Ripple network and maybe even possibly their own token. You know, situations like utility settlement coin, for example, is sort of the approach that I see the banks trying to take rather than the Ripple approach. But that's just my opinion. I do think that it's better for Ripple to go this route, though, with companies like Western Union and MoneyGram, so I'm excited to see them doing that. It is just a pilot implementation at this point, but it is something that people are excited about, so just wanted to point that out. Litecoin has really been the story, though. Everybody's been talking about Litecoin. There's been a number of things that have led to a lot of excitement surrounding Litecoin. Notably, Charlie Lee has been kind of hyping it up. He's been talking about a number of things for a while now, a number of events that are going to happen moving forward with Litecoin that are exciting, that people are really looking into to increase the price. We have this merchant processor, which recently Coinbase announced a new product, Coinbase Commerce, and this is a way for merchants to easily accept digital currency, notably the 4 cryptocurrencies that Coinbase currently offers, which is Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Litecoin. So this has been another thing that's bullish for Litecoin, but really the bigger narrative here, there's a couple, but 2 big narratives with Litecoin that people are excited about. The first one is this one huge unexpected surprise that Charlie Lee has been talking about for a while. Again, I've never felt comfortable when people talk about huge surprises because, number one, they're almost always set up for failure because expectations in this space are far disconnected from reality. But in addition to expectations being disconnected from reality, I also think it's very sketchy behavior to involve yourself in. I'm not saying I dislike Charlie Lee. I actually like him quite a bit. He has a number of, posts that are actually valuable. But the guy really, he should be sticking away from one huge unexpected surprise. It's like a pet peeve of mine. I hate when people say stuff like that, especially in a space where that's enough to manipulate markets by billions of dollars. Literally billions of dollars could be manipulated by one simple sentence like this. So Charlie Lee, lay off on that a little bit. At least in my opinion, I think he should. But that's one of the reasons people are excited. And then the second thing that people are excited about is this announcement from LitePay, which is a competitor to BitPay, to accept Litecoin for merchants, basically being able to convert Litecoin instantaneously into fiat currencies so that it's much easier for businesses to accept Litecoin. So this is going to be something that is very exciting for people who are interested in seeing more adoption for Litecoin. I still think there was a missed opportunity here. I think it would have been better if they called it LitPay, but whatever. I guess we'll take it. But this is really the major story that everybody's excited about. And then there's one final catalyst that people are not really that excited for, but might be contributing to the price increase slightly. And that is the hard fork that's coming up for Litecoin to create Litecoin Cash. And from what I've read, it's a complete joke. And I don't think any of the price increase in Litecoin should have anything to do with it, because from what I've seen so far, it's just nothing about it seems all that exciting to me. They just want to basically change it over to SHA-256. And from what I read, I believe it was like 1% pre-mined. It doesn't matter to me, okay? It's not worth buying. I don't even think it's going to be worth claiming your Litecoin Cash. I think it's probably going to be of that magnitude. It's going to be so meaningless that it's probably not even going to be worth claiming because there's some risk associated with doing that. So I don't really think that's an important catalyst, but it is one that's being brought up frequently, so thought I would also mention it. But overall in this market, there's been a number of things that have been happening here. Again, for me, the opportunities that I'm looking for is any cryptocurrencies that depreciate against Bitcoin as a result of, kind of hitting an extended bear market following this relatively volatile market that we've been in over the past 2 weeks or so. For example, Cardano, I still think it's way overvalued, but I'm starting to realize that it doesn't matter that it's way overvalued because the team that's behind it is excellent. So as long as we have a good team that's behind the cryptocurrency, it almost doesn't even matter because people are just going to invest in it because they're excited for it. So Cardano is actually one of the cryptocurrencies I'm watching here. If it does come down, it would still have to come down a decent amount from where it is now. If it does come down to like 3,000 Satoshi, I will pick it up. Okay. If it comes down to roughly 3,000 Satoshi, I will pick it up. I still think it's overvalued, just because of the fact of how early in it is. But I do know from, all the things that I've read about it, it's an exciting project. Okay. If I was just looking at it from the perspective of looking at it from a technological and nothing else, no investing perspective at all, Cardano is certainly an exciting project, which is more than I can say about most other cryptocurrencies in general. So even though I think the pricing is a little off in terms of the valuations here, it's still going to be one of those cryptocurrencies I watch for. And that's generally my approach into this market. And then the other thing I'm actually starting to consider here, I already have a number of cryptocurrencies, like notably ARK and Navcoin, that sort of pay out a dividend. It's not really a dividend. It's, in most cases, it's just adjusting for inflation. But I'm starting to think about taking a more income-focused approach with a portion of my cryptocurrency portfolio. I think we're going to hit the second wave of this particular Bitcoin bubble. And I think this second wave is probably going to be the last until we hit another bear market. Again, this is just sort of based off of the idea here that there is going to come a point where the capital that flows into these cryptocurrency markets starts to dry up a little bit. And I personally think that at this stage, this is probably going to be a second wave. We're going to see cryptocurrencies come back up again quite a bit. And, I want to make sure that I come out ahead instead of, coming out behind if we end up seeing a situation where, the second wave eventually ends and I didn't take out enough profit to be able to come out ahead. So one of the ways you can do that is by taking a more income-based approach to cryptocurrencies. And there are a number of things out there that can do that. I will be talking about that in a separate video in the future. I don't know exactly when, but that is something I'm thinking about actively as well. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out my Steemit if you're interested in interacting with me. I tend to post a little bit more frequently on there just because the number of comments is more manageable. I'm too lazy to pull up my Steemit right now, but you guys know where to go if you want to check it out. It's in the description below, and it's also in the pinned comment. So make sure you check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, as usual, leave a like, comment, and subscription, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.